You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out, and these are things that most people just aren't sharing.
So why are you such a bad CEO? Let's just start there.
I knew you were going to start out with... I hate that you get to press record because you start with the question. I'm like, it's going to start with me.
Next time you can return the favor.
Yeah. Why do I make a bad CEO? Because I am figuring it out as I go. And that's really hard.
It's funny. I've been like you. I've been dabbling in Twitter a little bit more recently.
Best ever.
And it's much better than anything else.
I say that with a huge asterisk, by the way. Best ever. But
somebody tweeted, give marketers a break. We're just making it up as we go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like that's true for CEOs too. Give us a break.
I'd argue that that's true for pretty much every person.
Fair.
Parents.
Fair.
Oh, parents right there. Figuring it out.
Yeah. I mean, so pretty provocative headline here for this episode. Why entrepreneurs make bad CEOs. Mm-hmm. It's certainly been my experience, and I won't speak for you. I don't think you're a bad CEO by any means, but it's certainly been my experience that making that transition from entrepreneur, team of one, small team, to CEO of larger team, is the skill transfer isn't as fluid as I would have liked it to have been. Yeah. It was jarring, to say the least. Has that been your experience?
Yeah. What I mentioned to you kind of like before we started recording was easily a 6 to 8 month period, and arguably I'm maybe still in that window of not trying really hard just not to insert myself back into things that I successfully removed myself from. I have CEO time now, and I need to figure out what to do that's effective in that CEO time versus hopping back into technician hat. And that's been super awkward. And it seems to be the case as we have more conversations like this and with peers and mentors that's pretty common. So yeah, I think I'm just, I'm trying not to beat myself up for not exactly knowing what to do, and also not, not feeling productive some days, and just like, okay, I don't feel like that was a great day as a CEO or any role, but there's tomorrow, and I'm going to hop right back into it tomorrow.
I feel like the whole conception of productivity changes when you're CEO.
Yeah,
what is productivity?
Thinking time.
It's very different from what it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was earlier in the trenches, and it was like, I heard Dan Martell say, real CEOs spend like 75% of their time thinking. I was like, I'm maybe 10% right now. And I definitely have more time to be doing the thinking. I don't think I'm utilizing all of that time effectively and or necessarily thinking about the right things. And there's ups and downs with that.
And it's uncomfortable, right? Because how did we get here? We got here by being really, really good at marketing, by getting really good at sales, by getting really good at delivery and fulfillment. And we were both very hands-on with each of those disciplines. And, in our minds, it's like that's what got us here, right? Like we got here by doing the things and getting good at the things in each respective area. And now it's like to sit back and dedicate time to thinking. Like, what the hell does that mean? Think about what and for what purpose and where's the payoff? Like when you run an ad campaign, you shoot an ad, you run it, there's immediate payoff. When you make a sale, you have the call, you close it, there's immediate payoff. Thinking? Where's that going to get me anytime soon? Like my lizard brain has a real hard time with that because I'm like, hey, I got to make my numbers, dude. Like, what am I thinking about when we got revenue targets to hit?
Yeah.
Is that just me?
No, I think that was very well said. I don't even have anything to add to that. That was so well said. But I mean, you did sneak in the "What got you here won't get you there," which I know was the original working title of this episode. I mean, like, again, I always kind of look to you as someone who, you're a few steps ahead of me in certain regards, and you're, I think, a little bit more numbers driven than I am, and so I don't know. You tell me, like, do you feel like when you do the thinking, and especially around like the numbers, that like it leads to specific tactical, like actions afterwards, or are there times where you're just like, I don't think there's an action at the end of this just yet. I just need to think more about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is when you get used to spending more of your time thinking. In the beginning, it's very uncomfortable because you don't know what the outcome is, and it's not tangible, it's not practical, you're not doing things. But when you start to notice a pattern of good ideas coming out of your thinking, and ideas that actually do make a tangible impact on the business, then you start to get more confident in it. So I'll give you an example. In December, we had a real hard time getting calls on the calendar. It's not just us, obviously. It's December, it's the holidays.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And my immediate like gut reaction to most things is wrong, I find. It's just I'm very reactive, very tactical. I'll resign myself to something we've tried in the past as my immediate reaction. But when I give myself the time and the space to think something through and not react to it as immediately as I would like to, which is, again, very counterintuitive for most entrepreneurs. We like to react fast, speed, move quickly. Don't think, move. But when I give myself the time and space to just think things through and not be super reactive, I tend to come up with better ideas. So we came up with a campaign in December that we ran bottom of funnel that saved the month in many respects, and definitely would not have thought of that if I was so stuck in the weeds of the day-to-day and reacting to everything as it happened. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
And I feel like that's our job at this stage, right? Is to be able to create that space, but it's uncomfortable, no doubt.
Well, yeah, and I also think, and you're, I think, a few steps ahead in certain parts, but like I said in the last episode, I'm only wearing the CEO hat a certain percentage of the time. Like, I have other roles right now that do require me to be acting and doing and producing. And I think contextually switching between those is really hard, especially as I continue to find more and more time to put the CEO hat on. I almost find it hard to hop back into the technician hat, at least in the areas that I'm responsible for. But like you said, that example of like you needed to be able to have that time to think about that campaign and then how to execute that. Like, if you didn't have that, like, where would that month, like, would the month have been saved? Probably not, So the ability to, I think, have the discipline really to like know that, okay, December stinks right now and I need to do something about it. But the first doing is not doing, and it's thinking, which means there will be no action right now. The only action is for me to step away from this and actually think and come back with the thing to do. I'm still working on the discipline to honor the time that I put on my calendar for that thinking. So kudos to you for being able to do that, because that obviously allowed you to salvage the month.
And I think for me, I don't want to talk about context switching. That's a really, really interesting topic here. That's probably gets to the heart of the challenge. But for me, I think it's less about putting time on the calendar to think. I've tried that, and I find something else to do in that time. I think it's really just committing to doing far less. I mean, for me, practically, it's about having multiple afternoons wide open on my calendar with nothing scheduled.
Oh, sounds good.
And I don't schedule thinking time. I feel like that's almost a curse, right? If I schedule
Do
thinking time,
so
it's
do
not
you
gonna
currently
happen.
have a lot of those blocks, or I guess not blocks, where there's nothing on your calendar? I don't think I necessarily still have that. I mean, I have blocks. I could if I removed kind of the blocks for the things that I was anticipating doing, but currently none of those in this given moment are for quote unquote thinking.
Yeah, I think it's seasonal. And let's talk about context switching because that's an interesting topic. I think that's really part of the challenge here is neither of us are fully removed from the day to day. That's not really practical for an organization that's sub 5 million, I would argue, unless we're just doing it wrong. And so we have to be involved in some of the day to day. We have to have some level of tactical engagement, and we have to play CEO. And this context switching between the two is hard. It's really
Yes.
really hard. So what are you doing to mitigate that?
Well, I found personally, like, we talked about this last year. We're recording this on a Friday. Like, this is the last thing on my day for Friday. So it's like I take Fridays off. I've been trying to take most Fridays like off, meaning no calls. I've been, it's like cold out right now and post snowing, but like that's when I'd go mountain biking. And so for me, I'd get a lot of good thinking done while I'm out on the bike. And also not thinking to then come back and think about the thing that I need to be thinking about way clearer. So the ability to, like you said, not have anything on your calendar, but also just know that a lot of this thinking for us as entrepreneurs, like, we never turn it off, as they say. I'm always thinking about business and the challenges, and we text each other on the weekends and it's like, oh yeah, like that's interesting, or like, I see your ad while I'm trying to watch a YouTube video every single day, and like you make me think about certain things. And so the one is schedule the time to not work has forced me to just clear my head, and sometimes good thinking happens during those moments, and sometimes if I don't, because I'm trying not to die on my mountain bike, I do come back with a clear head and I do look at things with a better perspective. So like I'm honoring the time that is on my calendar that is not work, because I do know about the behind the scenes processing that is happening, is one thing. I mean, I think we launched this podcast as another form, so to speak, of doing that, which I think is a smart move. And outside of that, I don't think I have too many tactical things that I've really been successfully putting into place just yet.
I think that first one's a big one though, right? Because most of the thinking happens subconsciously when you're not actively thinking about the problem. You're letting it brew in your subconscious mind, and that's going to best happen, most effectively happen when you're not working or engaged with work at all. When you're out on the mountain bike or out on the ski slope or the ski hill or whatever it may be.
Changing a diaper,
Yeah, I generally don't get my best thinking done. Fortunately, I don't have any diapers to change anymore, so I'm enjoying that season. No diapers. Everyone's
Lucky.
potty trained. It's great. I think that's a big one, right? Especially, this was hard for me. When I was the first, I would say, we've really been scaling for 3 years. I've been in business for 10, right? But the first 7 I was a solo consultant at stagnated revenue, right? So I don't really count that. We've been scaling for 3 years. And the first 2 years, I was working 9 to 7, 5 days a week, like just grinding hard, right? No time, coming home burnt out, stress, you name it. And I'm sure, you've experienced the same, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like just being able to take that time, and I attempted taking Fridays off, didn't go terribly well, but even just taking an afternoon off, taking a Friday afternoon off, or taking a week off, that was really hard because to be honest, I felt guilty because my team was working and I wasn't. Do you ever feel that way?
I think for a minute, but now I feel bad for maybe not feeling that. I feel guilty for not having been feeling guilty, I guess.
No, it's weird. I honestly, I feel guilty a lot of the time when I'm not super engaged or I'm just kind of taking it easy. which I mean doesn't make much sense, because if we accept the fact that the CEO's job is to think and to strategize, and that best happens when you're not actively engaged with the work, it's arguably my damn job to take time off and to step away, right?
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. Taking that time is really important. I've done a couple of other little tactical things that have helped. For example, Mondays are management days for me. So I have all of my meetings with my team leaders on Mondays.
Same.
And so what happens is I don't commit to doing a whole lot on Monday. Monday's like an input day. I'm getting lots of inputs, lots and lots and lots of inputs. And then I'm making decisions about where to spend my time and where to focus during the week on the Monday based on those inputs. And then most of my mornings go to meetings and, whether it's client meetings, internal meetings. And then my afternoons I keep free for whatever the things I need to deliver on that week. And if they're significant, then I'm going to fill up that time. And if they're not that significant, that time is free for me to think, do, take a break, whatever I want to do. And Fridays are no meetings. My only commitment on Fridays is right now this podcast, but no scheduled meetings allowed on Fridays. It's just open to do whatever.
Yeah, for me, it's team, everything. Like I kind of just call it team on Monday. We do our team department meetings, and then every other kind of rotating have different one-on-ones with direct reports. Tuesday and Wednesday for me are like I themed them as kind of like marketing type production. Like, so the things that I'm responsible for that are marketing, lead gen, lead nurture related happen on Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday. Then anything like delivery related happens on Thursdays. And then Fridays are similar to you. And if I need to bleed into Friday for some of that creation of either of those marketing or fulfillment type things, I could always add that to my Friday if I need to. And there definitely have been times where I've done that. But that creative work, I always try to get most of my creative work done like in the morning, because that's when I'm most energized to do that stuff.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to this earlier, but peer conversations and masterminds, that's a big one too, right? You were talking about earlier about how you had a chat about this with your clients, as did we yesterday. We had a mastermind call. So I know for our clients, stepping into our masterminds is a mechanism for them to step out of the day-to-day and think bigger picture. For you and me, it's our conversations with each other. We're both part of some other informal masterminds that we've created. That's huge, right? Having peers to chat with that'll take you out of the day-to-day and allow you to level up and think bigger picture. Those prompts, I think, are really important too.
Yeah, and I also, I mean, to take that one level deeper, there's many people that say this, but like, the best teachers are students, right? And so there's people that we learn that are ahead of us. But oftentimes I think what we've learned and the aha moments come from when we actually are then teaching it to others. Like when, like you alluded to on a coaching call yesterday with our clients, someone, they hired for a key role that has given them a lot of time back. And they were explaining everything that I experienced. And it's like, oh yeah, like that's 100% normal. And I didn't know that it was normal until I had a conversation like you're having with me, with someone that was a mentor to me, that told me that it was also normal. And then I've found that that's really the case. And so sometimes I feel like that aha moment is, kind of, I don't want to say, giving it back, but like come from the people that are behind you that are now experiencing what you experienced. And you're like, oh yeah, like I have the ability that you gave me the opportunity to look back and now extract that lesson where maybe it wasn't fully cemented just yet. But now that you're talking about it, yeah, like this is what I did. This is how it felt. This is how long it lasted. And like that whole thing sort of gets a bow put on it from the ability to go back, to the people that are, a few steps behind me.
And the pull that you get from being around people who are ahead of you cannot be understood. I'm actually pulling up our client Slack here because somebody jumped into the Slack after yesterday's mastermind meeting And I just want to read to you what he said. I thought it was really interesting. He said, just when I thought I had my arms around the concepts and principles in the program, I attended the call yesterday and I realized that I'm way behind the curve. Anyone else have that experience? Well, I'm thankful that being at the steep part of a big learning curve means there's a lot of opportunity for progress. I have these oh crap moments where it seems like I'm not getting anywhere with it. That's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a gift right there,
Yes.
right? Because the moment you begin to think that you're getting the handle on things is the moment that you stop growing. And this has been absolutely, I'm happy to see this happen with my client group. It's been my experience too, sitting in the room with people that are ahead of me and going, well, damn, I got some ways to go here. I don't really have this thing figured out, evidently. It's been hugely motivating for me.
Yeah, the analogy that comes to mind when you say that is like, was actually shared to me by Alex Hormozy, but it's kind of like climbing a mountain. If you've ever ascended in altitude, like if it's your first time, like I remember when I first moved to Denver, I used to live on the East Coast, practically sea level. I now live at, 5,200 feet high, it took me months to acclimate, let alone hiking up a mountain that is 14,000 feet high, and so it's like, as you ascend up higher in the ranks and to bigger levels of revenue, bigger levels of risk, it becomes hard to breathe because you've never been there before. And you have to be there for enough time to acclimate for it to then feel normal. And then you ascend further. And then it feels uncomfortable. You can't breathe. It's hard. And he gave this analogy of just like, it just gets harder and harder to breathe the higher you go until you're there long enough where you have the ability to acclimate. But we have a choice to acclimate and then keep going, knowing what we're about to experience. Or, and he said, this is okay, which I actually agree with as well. You can go back down to where now it's way easier to breathe. You know exactly what to expect, all of those things, but you also can't beat yourself up for not having the things that come from having not continued up the mountain. And so like that kind of like acclimation of being there, that like, oh my God, I don't know what this is. I don't know. I've never felt this before. Like, it's like, oh, that's normal. And that's what growth feels like.
So let's pull out that thread a little bit more, because I wanted to talk a little bit about reinvention. I feel like, from my experience, this whole game has been a process of constantly, every 6 to 12 months, reinventing myself and raising the lid on what I believe I'm capable of, and therefore we're capable of. And I feel like your metaphor really nails it. What do we do to accelerate the process of getting acclimated with the level that we're at so that we can go to the next level comfortably?
I think we've kind of hit on it a little bit, but like, I think having conversations like this, putting yourself around people that are ahead of you, it's like back to the analogy of going up a mountain, like it would be great to have a Sherpa with you, that has already ascended this thing before. They know which path to take, etc. They know where not to go. I mean, that's why you join masterminds, and is why you get from books from people that have written about, being ahead, places that are unknown and unfamiliar. And so like, I mean, when you read leadership books, to bring this not to just being mentors, like, I mean, Patrick Lencioni, I've like pretty much downed every single book that he's written, in seconds about leadership, like these fables that like, are stories about no one in particular, but someone who is in that position of leadership, and like hearing what they're going through and, all those things. Like, I think those sorts of activities are what, for the lack of a better term, normalize, what to do, and what it feels like, but also start to give you, like some sort of signpost of like, oh, like I'm on the right path, and or at least something to aim for, like to give you to be like directionally sound, if that makes sense. Like, okay, I'm going up this mountain. I could go left or I could go right. Both go up. okay, cool. Like either way, I'm going to go up. That's the direction that I want to go. I'm not quite sure which one's going to be easier or harder or what to expect on either trail. But like, I know that directionally I'm still moving up this thing, and then I can figure it out as I get a little bit further. I feel like that's sort of the game. But real quick on that, it's like there's something, maybe this is that whole, there's two different trails. And this is probably because I'm super guilty of overconsumption. I'm fascinated by how other people do stuff, and you probably can attest to this based on the questions I ask you all the time. Like, I'm just super curious about how other people run things, and I think it's because, I think we talked about this in the last episode. In corporate, like, you can see what the role looks like from the person above you, but there's a lot of different types of leaders, and there's no leader directly above me at this moment. And so I'm absorbing from you, from other mentors, from people that are leaders, from books I'm reading. And it feels a little bit to me like I'm also finding myself in the process. Like, I can see types of leaders that I don't want to be like. I can see types of leaders that I do want to be like from the very exterior perspective of what I see, But like, do I have the skill set and the traits or the characteristics that make them that type of CEO? Because I don't know if anyone's just defined the X number of types of CEOs, but like, there's clearly not one type of CEO. And like, I don't know what type I am. I don't know, when I look at you or someone else, like, are we wired this as our DNA the same, that if I'm trying to be like this person, am I, running up the wrong tree because I'm not like that person internally, if that makes sense? So I think that's a big part of this, is like, I don't know what type of leader I am yet. I don't know. I can't see necessarily what type of leader I want to be. I don't know if that's just a vision thing or if that's completely normal, but that's like what I'm kind of experiencing in this moment.
It's actually why I don't have any mentors right now. And I don't want any. I haven't had a mentor formally, for almost a year. My last mentor.
Let me just tell everybody one thing. Mm-hmm. There was a good, ever since I've known you, moment where you bought every single program, were in every single coaching mentor. Like, I was like, bro, if you just stopped buying everything, you'd be way more profitable. So for him to say that is pretty big. So I
think I needed it.
Put a little bit of weight on that.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that. So the reason why that was true is because I was insecure. And maybe rightfully so, insecure.
Well, I would say that I'm still a little bit of that.
Yeah, I don't even mean that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right? What I mean is, like, there was just a lot I didn't know. Yeah. And I didn't want the knowledge gap to be a factor. I didn't want anyone, like, I didn't want to not have information or knowledge that's going to hold me back. And so I would buy programs. I would hire mentors. I'd pay, the numbers, like a lot of money on mentorship, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, what I got out of it, like, the value was, there was value in all experiences. But the biggest value was knowing that there was nothing else, or there was very little that I didn't know now. I had access to some of the best people, some of the brightest minds. And so I couldn't use a knowledge gap as an excuse. I have all the knowledge. I have the resources. I have what I need. And I got to a point where the returns on that knowledge were starting to fade because I knew what I needed to do. And it came down to my own execution and, to your point, finding my own way to do it. Frankly, I copycatted people for a very long time. I just did what they did. And some of it worked, some of it didn't work. And I'm grateful because a lot of it worked. But now, personally, I'm at the stage where copycatting somebody else is not going to get me anywhere.
Right.
I've got to find my own path. And that's where I've been for about a year.
Yeah. I mean, just for those that are listening that maybe are listening because they're looking for some of those signposts ahead to anchor onto. As you said that, I just started thinking, do you feel like there are specific, and I'm sure there's more than just revenue signs, but like I feel like right now, so we're at 1.5 ish year. I think you said this year you're expecting to do 5, so I think we'll probably be close to 3 this year. That feeling of like, it's time for me to like not have a mentor specifically. Is there a revenue point where you feel like some of maybe those programs stop being as valuable as they once were? Because I have a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do too. You go first.
So I think for sure, at least, and I see this way more now that I'm here, that like getting over 1 million, like if you're not over 1 million, being in a program is like you should be in a program that has people that have been there, because there is a playbook, there is a sequence to getting to that point. And at least personally, what I've found is that once you get there, there's definitely a whole lot less people that are between 1 and 5 and 5 and 10. So your options become a lot lower of like who you can go seek out, at least in our space, and of programs that exist. But I do feel like where I'm at right now, to your point, like I've been over 1 million 2 years in a row, and I have still bought programs and invested in specific things. And while I do gain a little bit here and there, I have come back to being like, yes, I know that. I just haven't executed it correctly or led my team to execute it correctly. I know that I need to do those things, and that's like the season I'm in now is figuring out how to do that my way, where it works with my team and our culture, and like doing it exactly how someone else is doing it with a different type of style of culture and a different, like they can tell me the tactic that they're using all day long. And like, I don't know, it hasn't felt like as useful because the principle is still the same. Right. And so like, I knew the principle of what to do. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I feel like I'm at. And I feel probably that if I had to guess, because I'm not there, that takes me probably to 5, and maybe things start to shift going from 5 to 10. And from what I hear, 10 plus is definitely a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in the beginning, certainly sub 7 figures, you buy programs and you buy mentorship and coaching, consulting, and training for yourself. You surround yourself with the people that are doing the things that you're doing and that are ahead of you that you can learn from, and some that are behind you that you can pave the way for. I think that's invaluable, and that's been my experience, and that's been your experience. And I would not have been able to do what I've done without those experiences. Forever grateful and honored to provide similar experiences for my clients, because I know how important it was for me. I think you get to the point where, and I don't know it's 7 figures, like hard and fast. I think there's probably some context there, but I think you get to the point where your own tactical learning has diminishing returns, and what you need is either learning for your team or a bigger team. Like you need more people doing work to scale your efforts, or investing in training for them than investing in training for yourself from a tactical perspective, marketing, sales, fulfillment, etc. And, and personally, like, I want to be really clear about my stance on mentorship. Right now, I don't really have, my target's 5 million this year. I don't really have any missing pieces. I don't think we're missing anything, or that I'm missing anything in terms of my mindset and my outlook and my identity that's going to prevent us from getting to 5 million. I need to get, me and my team aligned on the same page, and we need to execute. It's really, really simple. We're like nose to the ground. However, if in the future I decide I want to get to 10 million, wow, that's a very different story. And I'm going to be, to your metaphor, pretty uncomfortable with the air up there. And I'm going to need a Sherpa to give me some oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, and again, because I kind of have you as an example on this, and we talk so frequently, outside of 1 to 2 hires, one of which is more important than the other, I think we have the pretty much the pieces to double. It's what I've always felt is we have yet to have a quarter where every department is firing on all cylinders and hitting all KPIs at the same time. And that's what we've been focused on, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, well, we know that this department can hit it. We know that department can hit it. Can the departments hit it at the same time, please? And then hit it again consistently. I feel like that's some of the things that we're currently dealing with. And yeah, I mean, I personally don't think that, and I'm not trying to sound like better than anything too, but I don't truly think that me buying another program right now is necessarily going to help me do that. It's me continuing to do what I know I need to do and not be distracted by other things and double down on the team and using the thinking time appropriately.
But that's
doing the little homework, doing the little work.
That's interesting, right? That's, you could probably sum up the role of the CEO right there is to keep those plates spinning and spinning at the right speed and with consistency, those departments, those leaders, those people. Mm-hmm. I completely empathize with your pain here, right? Because it's my pain too. What's the fix? How do we create that consistency across those departments?
Is that a rhetorical question, or you're actually looking for an answer at the moment?
A little bit of both.
I mean, you've kind of made me kind of dumb it down to some things, to me, and you'll probably be like, finally, he's listening. But if we could just get our lead gen to be consistent, we have the capacity to, on the sales side, and easily to double revenue. And we could probably, like I said, probably have to bring on one other person on the client success side if we actually start getting close to doubling to be able to support the added clients that come in. And so, yeah, that's the question. How do I continue to lead the team to, one, navigate, the sales team to navigate the I guess maybe the lows that come with their calendar not always being as full as I know it can be, and then leading the marketing team to filling that calendar more consistently. And there's just a lot of little things that go into making that happen that I know about, I see it, and we work on, and then it works, and then it stops, and then you go back. It's so there's a lot of optimization in that. That's I'm responsible for. I still wear the marketing manager hat. I wear the sales manager hat. I'm not the one doing the selling. I'm not the one running the ads, but I'm a key piece of the content process that feeds that. And, keeping a finger on that pulse is really important. And so, I think that, and that sounds so in the weeds tactical. That doesn't sound like CEO things. And some of it probably isn't, but I know that if we just keep doing that, we'll hit all of our goals, right? And so it's I feel like where the CEO hat then goes on for that is, if I'm doing anything other than those things, then I'm not being a good CEO.
So my contention here, and I say this as somebody that has the exact same pain that you do, right? Keeping those plates spinning consistently. I don't remember last time we've had a quarter where everybody hit KPI at the same time. Gotten close maybe, but I think we're in the same boat there. My contention here is that we're not going to experience that until we have bona fide leaders at the helm of each of those disciplines.
Yes.
And that's kind of the challenge of the stage of growth that both of us are in. Is where
don't people call it the messy middle? I think is that 1 to 3 or is it 1 to 10?
I don't know, but it's now. It's now.
Well, if you're between 3 and 5 and going to hit 5, it's definitely over 5. So,
but I'll tell you this, because I remember what you were describing. I remember being in that position. That's messier and it gets a little bit cleaner. But I don't think you can really create consistency consistently until you have people at the helm that are qualified, motivated, aligned. And I've got some of those people, and I need some more of them. And I think that's the game at this stage.
Yeah. And then I mentioned a quote before we started recording that hasn't come up yet. That was I heard from one of my former mentors, was that your business will never exceed your own capacity as an entrepreneur. And I think the capacity that I'm lacking, that I'm trying to develop right now, is what you just said, the ability to find, develop, and encourage, and all of the things to get the people that we have to play a bigger game, and also attract people that want to be a part of this bigger game. And I'm figuring out what that looks like. And what exercises do I need to do to increase that capacity? You know, like I got to be doing something to increase my own capacity. What's your take on that? I mean, and again, you're a little bit ahead of me. So what did you do to feel comfortable? Because like you said, the reason I think a lot of people call this the messy middle, or at least in the book, The Messy Middle, is you're in this stage of growth where you have to bring on that team, and that team has an expense. And if the current team isn't hitting all of those KPIs, like it's hard to fund that. And so like margins get tighter while you scale. You bring on the talent that should help give you the ceiling, raise the ceiling, but then you have to perform to now fill in the gap of this new room that is above you because the ceiling just went higher. Like, can you talk to that? Because you're, like you said, it gets a little bit cleaner. I'd love to know how to clean that up.
I mean, I feel like at a certain point, your number one job as the CEO becomes attracting and retaining top talent.
Right.
That's kind of what the game becomes eventually, right? And for me personally, in light of that, I would characterize my number one job as being consistently selling myself on what we're capable of. Okay, I'll tell you what I mean by that. The greatest sale that you're ever going to make is the sale that you make to yourself.
Yeah.
I got to believe that we're going to achieve our goals, that our vision is compelling, it's worthwhile to pursue, and that this is the very best place for my people to be. I got to believe that, first of all, in my bones, for me to convey to them where we're going, why we're going there, and get them to go along for the ride, all in, like full tilt, 100% engagement.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly reinforcing that with my team. Like, it's not about what we want to do in and of itself. It's about your role in that and what that means for you. So here are questions I'm constantly asking my team. Are you having fun? Are you enjoying this? Why are you enjoying this? Are you being challenged? What would make this a more enriching experience for you? Where are you trying to get to? What would make this a more enriching experience for you?
Oh, enriching.
Where are you trying to get to? What's your goal?
Yeah,
one of my people wants to retire in 8 years, right? And great. So what needs to happen for you to retire in 8 years? And are we aligned? Good news is we are. So I'm constantly asking those questions of my people because that keeps them grounded. And in terms of recruiting, by no means do we have a really airtight philosophy on this. But I got to tell you, our best people, we've attracted them to us. They were either clients in some cases who liked what we were doing and decided they want to be a part of it, and they said goodbye to their businesses in order to become part of what we're doing. Or they were, personal relationships that came from either my network or the networks of people that work here that also took notice of what we were doing and said, I want to become a part of that.
Yeah.
And those have been some of our best relationships and some of our best people.
That's super interesting. Man.
I think we covered a lot today.
We did cover a lot today. We may even split this up into 2 episodes. Who knows? I don't know what our philosophy is on that yet because this is so early in the game.
Well, and maybe interesting note to end on here when it comes to people is people will leave. And in fact, my very first employee just resigned about a week ago.
And I think that tees up the next conversation. What happens when employees leave? Key employees, early employees. I know I took, for the next conversation, there will be people that leave because they don't fit. They no longer fit the plan because the plan has got more clarity. And, we shifted a couple times, and that led to not needing some of the people that were currently on the bus. And we had, you have crappy conversations. And then there's people, this is actually new for me, of just they choose to leave because they self-select themselves out of your culture. That's interesting also. So good fodder for next episode. But if you had to kind of tie a bow on what makes you a bad CEO, how would you tie that bow up?
We're on full circle here. What makes me a bad CEO is that, let me ask you another question before I answer. Have you done the Kolbe assessment?
Yeah, a long time ago.
What are you? Do you remember?
I'm a 5, 6, 7, 3.
Okay. So you're a less extreme version of me. I'm like 3, 4, 9, 3, something like that. So for those who are listening, the Kolbe assessment is an interesting personality assessment. It's called a conative assessment, where it doesn't measure your personality or your IQ or your EQ. It measures your how you make decisions, your conative ability. And for me, and this is the same for you, but I'm a little bit more extreme. I'm a very high quick start.
Yeah. And
a quick start is somebody that likes to do new things, likes to try things, likes to just get into the weeds and figure things out. Probably, I don't have any data on this, but probably very common among entrepreneurs is a high quick start rating. And that's what fundamentally makes me a bad CEO or makes it challenging, is because I just like getting into the weeds and figuring stuff out and sometimes breaking things so I can fix it. And that's not becoming of a CEO.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Yeah, the number of times that I've thought of other businesses that I could start in the last 12 months is more than I should probably reveal.
But the big learning for me there, and going through the Kolbe assessment was very eye-opening. The big learning for me was it's okay that I'm a quick start. I have to know that about myself so I can mitigate some of the risks that represents. But also, I'm not going to surround myself with a bunch of other quick starts.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for chaos.
My number 2 is like literally the complete opposite of me, and like really good on follow through. And so, yeah, like we complement really, really well.
Awesome. You want to wrap it here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, basically the moral of the story is growth is uncomfortable. What got you here isn't going to get you there. If you're feeling some of the things that we've expressed, hopefully you now know that you're not alone, and that it's normal, and that you get to continue to choose to wake up every day and play the game that allows you to increase that capacity that will allow you to keep going up higher on the mountain. So that's actually probably the piece that, if I had to like put a bow on it for me, is I'm still stoked every single day to figure this out. Whether today is good or bad, whether we hit our goals today or don't, like I'm still excited to wake up tomorrow and get back at it. It's like you talking about practice? Like, yeah, I love practice. Like we're always practicing, right? Like you gotta love the practice, or else I don't think you're gonna make this. But that's my
challenge you to drop an Allen Iverson quote in every episode from now on.
That's going to be really, really difficult.
Awesome. All right, man. See you next time.
All right, guys. Take it easy.